Welcome, my friends. Shop Talk here. Production of the In Kitchen and our sponsors, Los Angeles Apparel, AlphaBroder, and you can read the rest there. They make this all free, so give them some love. I'm here with my good friend Brian, Devilfish Inc. in Philadelphia, PA. We're going to talk about analog art and inspiration in particular. So Brian, you use all artificial intelligence, is this right?
Well, sometimes I think my intelligence is artificial, yes. But, you know...
I don't think beer counts as artificial, maybe sacrificial. You are actually in a brewery, right?
Yep.
Your place?
Yep.
There's some inspiration right there, right?
Built in the 1800s.
Yeah, actually talk about where your shop is, because I think, you know, like your setting, it can be in part inspiration when I think about it. Where's your shop?
So, a little bit about myself. My business is Devilfish Inc. Graphic Arts and Printing, and split between, you know, silk screen printing on both apparel and flat stock, like the live printing posters that we were doing all weekend.
Check out the posters. Buy one for charity over there. Brian was printing these for 3 days now. That's why he looks tired.
We also do digital paper printing, banners, cut vinyl, design stuff, all that, as well as custom illustration, branding, design. Pretty much a one-stop shop for, you know, whatever you might need.
With 400 employees, right?
No, I opted to keep it. I started to build my business maybe 10 years ago and was up to like 2 or 3 employees, and decided that I preferred it when it was much smaller. I didn't need to be chasing every single job. When you're only got 2 mouths to feed, you can be a little bit more, you know, picky of what kind of work you wanted to work on and how you wanted to spend the rest of your time. So I specifically kind of not choked back, but focused on doing the type of work that I wanted to accomplish and dedicate my time to. My shop is in Philadelphia, which is a lot of historical architecture and stuff. The building I'm in was actually built in the 1850s as a brewery, went dormant during Prohibition, and then in the 90s got rebuilt as a craft brewery that I helped rebuild all their branding and their first 8 beers. And when time came that I needed a new location, talk about inspiration, dumb luck ran into my friend who owned the brewery at the post office the day that I got evicted from my shop because they were tearing it down to put up giant high-rises. And he offered me the space. It's glorious. It's the second floor. It was actually the hayloft portion of the original brewery for the horse stable down below when they would deliver the beer by horse and carriage. So it's 25-foot vaulted ceiling.
So when people say your art is horseshit, there might be a little bit of truth to it. Is that true?
Yeah, I've probably been that person saying it half the time. So, your environment. I look at inspiration as inspiration is everywhere and anywhere. The hardest part is being open to it. And being able to recognize it when you're not looking for it. Because a lot of times inspiration can be like you're playing whack-a-mole. You know, you keep going, you see it, and it's not there. But every now and then you crack one square on the head. And, you know, so I've learned to not really chase it. I try and step back from it, get the thought process working in my head before I'll actually sit down and start working on something. Because half the time, those ideas are going to hit you when you're not sitting there in front of a blank piece of paper going, okay, how am I going to start this job? And that can be a scary situation because, you know, usually you're on deadline, you know, you're trying to force creativity, and or your mind is just stuck on the fact that your press operator screwed up the last 2 jobs, and you might have to fire this guy. So you learn to be open to the inspiration, and to me, it'll find yourself. Like I tell my clients a lot that, they'll say, well, where did you get that idea? It's like, I kind of let the piece dictate to me what it needs. And, a big fan of, when you're proofing or working on sketches and stuff, print them out, lay them out on a table in front of you, over the weekend when you're not looking at them, because just by walking past it every day without actually looking at it, your eye is still reading it, and you'll realize, like, oh my God, there's not enough contrast on this side, that all falls off, when you're not going, what's wrong with this?
That's funny. I squint at things sometimes when I'm trying to.
Oh, I totally, everyone makes fun of me because they call it my tiki face, because I work constantly like this, because I realized that
You're looking for the big contrast sometimes.
Yeah,
Or the big picture.
if you're focused in, it's the same thing of, I keep trying to tell clients that if you make everything bold, nothing is going to be bold. You need contrast in shape and
More is
color,
less.
and so yeah.
More definitely can be less. So I find this very interesting because your Zen approach, for lack of a better term, is pretty amazing for a person that really, as you said, a small business that's really art based. I mean, all good printing starts with the art. You're really, all of your work comes from art. You're not taking contract printing jobs on the whole. So there's that kind of more pressure on you. Despite more pressure, your resolution for it, or your solution for it, I should say, is to decrease the pressure.
A lot of times that's what works.
Yeah.
Because you can, if you trying to force something to conform to what you want it to do, it never worked for my poor mom and dad, and it rarely will ever work for a good, successful design. I try and let, be a little bit open, and like I said, just be open and aware and looking for the inspiration when it comes is the most important thing for me. And because sometimes it'll be immediate and I can see the entire thing in my head, and all I got to do is sketch it out quick, some minor edits, and it's done. And then I can move forward. Other times I'll do, 25 different thumbnails, take it to halfway of completion and go, this is not working. I need to start over from scratch again.
All right, we'll try something here like you mentioned. So do either of you have art projects right now or ones you recently worked on, like that we could use as an example? Something
Or
you're
in the
working
past,
on, or
yeah.
something in the past that you worked on?
Something that, has stumped you that you've been trying to work on
You
recently.
won't be able to film us, so let's stay here.
Gotcha.
We'll give them
Okay,
mics.
gotcha.
We'll give you each a mic. We should try a little experiment here. So, something you were working on. So I do a lot of art direction. I'm not an illustrator like he is, but I have a lot of art projects, and then he is an artist and illustrator. So if you have something that you either recently worked on or whatever, tell us what the project is, and I'll kind of, both of us can say maybe what we would have done for inspiration to get the art done on the project. You got something?
I got to think about it a minute.
All right. Fair enough. You
we
got
did
an
some-
art project there that you worked on? So the question is like how to decide about using a straight font or a curved font. That's a good question.
Yep. To me, again, it comes down to how is it being used. I look at our primary function or primary job as a designer is a problem solver. You know, you gotta look at all the different issues and what you're trying to accomplish with that shirt, and then build how the design is going to pull the reader into that and influence them, guide them through reading the design and what they're going to take from it. So, you know, if you're looking for like a job that I just talked to the woman on Tuesday before I came down here, was for a security company that they wanted to try and, you know, I asked, the first thing I did was, you know, well, how are you using the shirts? And they said, well, you know, like, are they for your employees? And they're like, no, our guys wear blazers and embroidered shirts. You know, they all serve the hospitality industry in Center City, Philadelphia. And we're starting to move into my neighborhood of Fishtown/Kensington. And, you know, they're pulled up on the website while I was talking to them, and their logo is very clean and sturdy, the way, you know, what you would expect from a security company. But they wanted to do the use of these shirts was to give out to the staff of bars and restaurants in the city that they were trying to pull in, or even that they were already in, so that they could get their name and their business out into, you know, the workers in that industry. I was like, okay, so there are two different, you know, approaches to what you need.
I will say that's the exact question I would ask first too. How are they being used?
You know, so to me, I can't say, you know, when to and when not to. I mean, a curved line is going to be more dynamic, you know, and create more of movement and a thrust, and it's going to draw your attention a little bit more, you know, and so that might be great, you know, for a wild style, you know, poster, or, you know, a record shop, or, you know, somebody, you know, of course, look at all the motocross and, you know, car racing and dune buggy and all those, like, they're very, very kinetic. Everything's always shooting off in every direction and fast. You know, even sitting still, it looks like it's moving fast. Where that technique is not really going to work for Harvard University, you know.
But I think, you know, so in this case that he's saying, you know, curve might be more interesting, and you want the shirt to look good in the end. Like, I get a lot of small companies, like, they want their phone number on there. It's like, no, people are going to Google it. You're like, and if you're going to give these out, they don't want the phone number on there. So you might use curve because it looks better. It usually will look more stylish, if you will. So whereas, like he said, if it was the staff wearing it, you want to immediately identify this as Joe Blow Security, and you might use big block letters so that when people come in, what's that guy doing there? Oh, he's the security guy. So you would ask that kind of question. So we have an interesting variation of that. We're about to do the Farm Aid concert, and so there's a few, when you're thinking about the type. One is it's going to be in the back of a booth at night, and people are going to be drunk. So, like, you got to think that's how the presentation is. It's not like right in front of the person. So you start thinking about the type, and that's the presentation. And then, you know, what's the important part? In this case, it's really got to read Farm Aid because people want that souvenir. And the back, it's got to be real readable. People want, where was it? What were the bands I saw? And so you would not want to go crazy with the type. You want it really readable on the back. So those were the kind of things I would think of. So you start by asking this question, who is it? Who's buying it? What's the demographic? What age are they? You know, where are they going to see the shirts? Is it online? Or is it like on a person walking around, you're giving them away? Are you selling them? Like, you ask all those questions up front. Mm-hmm. Before you're going to find inspiration, you better know where you're headed.
You can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is.
Okay. I'd like to know a strategy for combining a photograph with lots of dot resolution in it with just plain simple type. Combining photos with just simple type.
All right. Just in general, how to work with a photo and simple
I
type.
couldn't really.
Photo and simple type. How would you do a design where there's a photo involved and simple type? Like where do you run it? What do you do with the photos, etc.?
I'm a big fan of creating space. So, having a background, midground, foreground, so you can do stuff that way where, you can have, it again, the type. Say it's, Black Lives Matter with the 3 lines, and you've got a figure in it. You can have, the top line behind, the midline behind, and then the matter up front. You're going to create dynamics that way. Or I just did a piece for a record label that they wanted, the artwork from their record on the shirt with the name, but the name isn't on the actual cover art. And I'm personally never a fan of putting a perfect square on the middle of a t-shirt. Your body's not square, it doesn't look good.
Unless you're a robot.
And it's usually very uncomfortable, if you're building a very heavy print, because let's face it, most rock shows or, the band, but Birch is going to be a black t-shirt.
And held to print properly because it's very easily going to look crooked or not straight.
So for solving that problem, what I said to him, I was like, well, why don't we do big block lettering? Because the name of his project was just like 5 letters. So it would be real easy to do big, bold, thick, like what they call slab fonts, large over the entire shirt with very minimal negative space separating the lettering, and having the cover art that was basically just a wood panel, design with elements inside of it, and have all of that detail inside the lettering. And it blew his mind to the point that now we're working on a full line of clothes that are all of his artists in the same concept, where it has their name and their cover art inside the lettering.
Well, this is very interesting because the most recent shirt that I designed was a photograph with type. And we will be selling it tomorrow in Somerville, Massachusetts, actually. So I have this crazy friend, he calls it minimum wage art, and he makes sculptures out of junk. So he has a full-size bison made out of junk. The head is a Harley Davidson gas tank that he found. He calls it Harley. He drives around with it on top of his car. So it's pretty fun.
You need to introduce me to this guy.
No, you would like this guy. So my friend Smitty. So there's a very iconic tower from the 1800s, from the Revolutionary War, I think, to begin with, at the highest hill in Somerville. So he took a picture of his car with Harley on top of it, and the words that we were going to use are Somerville, where the buffalo roam. And Brian Lassard, who actually designed all the stuff at that Made Lab party last night, he used like a curve font because it was kind of cool looking at the top, but it didn't detract too much. He used like a rather thin font, but it was curved, and it wasn't traditionally curved. It kind of went to the side, and not to distract from the photo. And then we softened all the corners of the photo, so it really focused in on the tower and the buffalo, not the extraneous stuff at the edge. Also didn't make a square, not as much ink. And then at the bottom, where the buffalo roam. Plus it was sort of a one-liner, Somerville where the buffalo roam. So you didn't want to like run it together. So that was our solution in that case.
So you do all your work on Photoshop with the photograph and then place it in Illustrator.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And I didn't do it either. I'm more of an art director, so Brian finished it, but that was sort of my concept, and he added to it. And it's another part of inspiration, I think, is collaboration. I don't know. You don't do that as much, but I do a lot.
Oh, no. I mean, anytime.
Oh, yeah, and you collaborate with a lot of a lot of your customers are very arty, I would say, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so I know from talking to you, use collaboration.
Yeah, I mean that's what I prefer that, because I tell my clients all the time, like, look, the more I get to know you and your psyche and your likes and tastes and dislikes, the easier it is for me to get inside your head to imagine what you're imagining and then be able to produce that, and that it can take time, or, sometimes it's like anything else. If you click with somebody immediately, it's much easier. But for me, if you're really doing artwork that it was going to reflect your client's work, you need that back and forth collaboration with them.
One of my favorite, I do collaboration big and small, I think. So there's kind of a three-way collaboration with the poster that we did, So this poster, was originally an idea of Alex Spurrier, who lives around here, but then, Andy, who printed some of the things in Long Beach, and Brian made recommendations to make it both print better and I think come out better in the end. And, that comes from everybody being open to listening, and that's not always, you got to listen to your clients. And you know what? Don't be afraid to have them listen to you. We have a client right now, and they want us to do this print that's just going to come out terrible, because it's been designed by someone that knows nothing about garments. I'm sure, people that design for the internet or for, Facebook splashes or, TikTok or what have you, it's a different thing. Wearable art is something. Don't be afraid to tell them that you're an expert, because it's a really different medium than almost every other medium, I would say.
I just had to do that with a client on Tuesday right before I left. We did, we're working with it's a giant food festival in Philadelphia. And so we did T-shirts, billboards, postcards, posters, banners, everything to promote and market it. And, certain things were utilized, certain elements were utilized in every different reformat. So in one of them, I changed the lettering to fit that space better because it didn't have all of the original elements from the poster. And the client came back to me saying, well, okay, we need to change all that to that lettering now. And I was like, no, we don't. Because I changed that lettering and the shape of that lettering because that image of the water splash, it was a whale expelling water, and they had the Feast of Ale coming out of that, very dynamic. On the billboard, that, on a t-shirt is a very different shape and format than a billboard. So I didn't use the full whale or the water splash, and it needed, a different shaped font or it looked out of balance. And I think I ultimately annoyed her because I was like, no, I'm not going to do that because we're taking a step back. I'm like, to do that worked better on this application, but it's not going to look as good in its original usage. So luckily, she finally buckled and agreed, like, okay, I trust you, it's fine.
The other thing I'll say about collaboration, because it's one of my more favorite stories. So my friend Casey Ruby and I worked on a Farm Aid designs, and we came up with one that they actually sold tens of thousands. My favorite T-shirt. It says farmers, and then it's like a guy making a karate kick and a donkey. So it's farmers kick ass, and people love it. It's like kind of fun, but strong, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I get stopped. People take pictures of it. And they sold a lot of them. And he thinks I came up with it, and I think he came up with it. And that is like a beautiful situation. I think that collaboration and inspiration, it's sort of like your same openness. Like if you're trying to hold on to it, like that's my idea, it's not going to work. Like when you're really, really open the universe is going to present itself with a lot more options for you. And so I love that story because we both think that the other one was responsible for it. I don't know, I think anything else you want to say about analog, inspiration, anything else? Did you have any other questions or?
Yeah.
When a customer is adamant about a crappy design,
When they come with a crappy design?
yeah, and
Oh, never had that happen.
you just bite your tongue and give it to them? How do you,
That is a really good question.
Yep. I always approach that very delicately, first off, because you don't know whose toes you're stepping on. Because that may be that person's daughter who did the illustration, and if you say this design is crap, he's going to say you're crap, and I'm never working with you again. So, always a little bit of kid gloves when you're saying, I always
Jedi
start
mind
with-
tricks are necessary.
Yeah, I'm like, I hope you don't mind. I know you're not asking, but I'd like to critique the design.
We'll make a suggestion.
Yes. It's like, I would prefer, I think it'll look better if we do this, that, or, always pick out the good things. I love the concept, and which with a few subtle edits, we can make this look so much better. It's always...
You maybe can use what he said, like, oh, this would be a really good sticker, but, maybe for a shirt, because we work with shirts all the time, I find that these things of it might not work, or something like that. You really do have to be delicate about it, though.
Yeah, but me personally, I'd say 90% of the time I will refuse to print something that I don't think looks good, because if people know it or not, I printed that. And I stand behind 100%. I mean, that if my whole niche is better art, to put out something that's not up to my standard, I'm going to say, you know what? I don't think we're the right pairing. You could probably try these guys. They do good work as well.
So I think we're in a little different situation. So I have a bigger shop. I can't turn stuff down a lot of times. Couple things. One is if we're not directly dealing with the customer, we deal with like promotional products companies, then I'll just say this is horrible. This is going to come out horrible. Your customer's going to look bad. This is like awful. And I'll explain why. And, I might be a little delicate and say, all right, we'll work on this, this, and this. It looks like a person that doesn't know T-shirts is the most common problem. And then I'll say, you want us to come up with something else? Or, you want to deal with them, but it's not going to come out good. And then those are the customers that they better approve the mock-up. They're approving a photo. I might even make them approve a shirt and sign it, because sometimes somebody in the organization did it and it's ugly, and then the CEO or somebody sees it later and goes, who let this happen? And you're going to get blamed, or they're going to try to blame it on you. Oh, look, it's a 1/4 inch low or something because it's ugly. So, and then sometimes it happens later. Like, you might not even notice. As often as I've done this, something in a mock-up I might not realize till you actually print it. And so I tell all my people, if it comes down the dryer and it looks bad, you better say something. Don't just say this looks like what we showed you. That's you gotta. You're expected to be the expert. Like, you should have told me it wasn't going to look good when it was actually on a shirt. So I think you got to speak up. How vehemently you speak up, you have to consider the situation. Don't just print it, though. That's a bad idea. Have you thought of this other font that might work? Or there's ways to be positive about it, then do that. And then, you do have to sniff out a few times where it might not want to do it, because you're just going to look bad yourself.
Well, although sometimes the non-kid gloves is what works if that's the person's mentality. I met a friend's wife's father, who he and I shared a lot of common things together. We were sitting around bullshitting one night, and he's an author. So he showed me, he's like, he's like, this is my new book, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, really? And he's like, what? I'm like, this is awful. I was like, this is not interesting. Like, he's a humorist, poet, motorcycle guy. He writes for BMW Motorcycle Magazine and travels around to the rallies, and he's a humorist. And it was just an awful book design, very static, didn't draw him at all. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I hope I don't offend you. Like, we were drinking, it was fine. But 6 months later, when his next book was coming out, he went, well, since you played it straight with me, he's like, let me see what you can do. I was like, great. Like, if you like it, we'll talk about payment. If not, I'm willing to take that chance because I have confidence that I'm going to prove to you what I can do better. And since then, I've designed 4 of his next books.
Other question? Yeah.
What's in your notebook you have sitting there?
Oh, so one of the other, we kind of ran out of time beforehand to really sync together on how we were going to approach such a tricky subject as inspiration, because it can be very lofty and ephemeral. It can be very specific of like, what would you do in this situation? Or, we could have approached it of, so let's go through and I can tell you, because inspiration hits me in all different ways. Like I said, sometimes it's, immediate. I know exactly what I want to do. I just need to get it down on paper. And, some of them are super simple, crude line drawings that I could never show to a client because they wouldn't understand what it is. But to me, it's right. It's all the information is right there. I just need to draw it better. Whereas other times, I'll labor or stop, or especially with a lot of the band stuff, I'll put on their records while I'm working on another project, and something will hit me. Like I did a piece for the Buzzcocks, which is a British punk band, and I did. So actually, these are perfect because they're both together. So these were both for the same music festival, Project Pabst out in Portland. And the Blondie was the first one that I did. And they were like, hey, that's great. You knocked it out so quick. I was like, for me, I was like, all right, well, this was my first job for Pabst. I assumed they wanted it this is a Pabst music festival. And they came back saying, well, we're having difficulties finding other designers. Do you want to do another one? And they said it doesn't have to hit you so hard in the head that it's a Pabst festival. It's like, it doesn't need to be a Pabst advertisement. I was like, okay, great. So I wanted to do something. And the Blondie one is very static, and very refined. I wanted to do something completely different. Again, trying to impress them as a client that that's not the only kind of style that I can do. I can also do this kind of stuff. So for the Buzzcocks piece, I put on their music and never really listened to most of their later music. The more modern stuff, I knew all their classics. So I was like, let me put on some of their newer music, and a line of a sonic sound is in the air, bullets flying everywhere, everyone shakes to the sound of a gun. And I was like, that's a great line. It's a real driving rhythm of a song. I was like, immediately it was like, okay, like urban jungle kind of theme of using like a howling monkey as that screech throughout the entire jungle where all the other animals get spooked and go, the birds fly and everything else. So kind of juxtaposing that concept with more of an urban jungle and an actual gun. So that's, the bullet going through the original Buzzcocks. That's a stylized version of their iconic logo, but the real part of that is it's split. So I decided to do the split, and tie the bullet as the voice coming out through the ape's mouth. And I wanted everything to be very sonic and like, resonating, very kinetic versus the more static Blondie one. So I started doing it, then got everything together and could not figure out how to bring in the jungle element. I spent hours downloading stock photography, trying to figure out what would work best. Wasn't working, finally gave up, went over, met up with my wife for a cocktail after work. Sitting there with her friends, they were talking about her own thing. I was just kind of staring out the window. And in my neighborhood back then, there was a lot of abandoned warehouses and stuff that this one lot had weeds that had never been mowed in probably 25 years. So they were massive, like 30 feet trees that my brain immediately went, it had just stopped raining. The light was hitting it with the new sun. It was all dancing around. I was like, I gotta go and photograph this for that poster that I couldn't figure out what to do. And I took some from the outside and everything, and then realized that what I really wanted to do was juxtapose the real slashy illustration style with more of a stylized photographic image and frame it from the outside, so that you're looking out from the jungle, not into the jungle. So I climbed into the trees and shot from the back so I would get very graphic outlines against the backlight, and then photoshopped the full frame together to create that jungle look, even though it's in the middle of Center City, Philadelphia, and it's just giant weeds. So that it certainly reads as a jungle, when on the final piece. So again, you never know when that inspiration is going to hit you. I had spent hours in my shop that morning trying. It took sitting down, sipping, a beer and talking with friends, caught something out of the corner of my eye and was like, aha, there it is, I'm done.
That's a good one. I think the other thing for clients is to find out what they like. And then I heard a great line yesterday, actually might have been from Pam. Find some things you like, but never take more than one element from it. Like being derivative, not only is it not ethical, it's derivative and crappy. And so, but if you see something you like about something, you can take something from that and add some other things. And I think that's where the clients can help you sometimes. Show me some things you like. Sometimes they bring I want something like this. Well, what else do you like? Let's bring some other things in. I'm not going to copy something. It's not going to look good in the end, really.
Well, and that's something that Alex Spurrier, the artist that did the poster, did his talk yesterday on artificial art, AI, and how he utilizes it as a springboard. You don't be afraid to look at other people's work and take from it, exactly what you're saying. Everything's been done. But I'm not a proponent of stealing someone's art and utilizing that, but you can take like I said, again, comes down to problem solving. How did that designer solve that problem? Because you can give the same problem to 12 different students or 12 different designers, and they're all going to have a different vantage point. They're all going to have a different solution. So you can utilize that to go, I really like, just the way they did that, instead of having it very symmetrical, it's asymmetrical and heavy on the right side, and that really pulls you into that concept.
So, I'm working right now. I have a film festival in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and we want to have a logo for it for this year. And so, the woman that I'm working with on it, I just grabbed a whole bunch of things off the web that I liked. And I had a couple ideas of using an old school projector or camera. And so I took a bunch of them that I liked, because I don't want to use one of them. Just that kind of thing. She'll redraw something that's of that spirit, if you will, but not copy it, you know? And then
I'll do that a lot. Yeah, I print, like, I tend to not work digitally on, like, I prefer drawing or painting on paper and then working digitally, as opposed to, you know, straight drawing on my, you know, pen tablet, that kind of thing. But one of the things that goes along with that is me losing my idea. What were we talking about?
drawing for inspiration, different things to draw from.
Oh, right.
Without copy.
So, you know, if I'm, you know, either way, if I'm working on a design, or I'll print out my source material and have it sitting to the side in the area where I'm drawing. So again, you're peripherally looking at it. Or I have a dual monitor system, so I can do that if I'm working on a design layout as well. If I'm utilizing certain elements in other designs as that inspiration, you know, I'm seeing it without staring at it.
We've even used that to sell clients on where something comes from. So, worked for one of the mills. We had this idea of, I don't know if I want to get into what it was, but what it was not immediately, well, I could say it actually. So we used the numbers of their styles as like design elements. And then they didn't get it. And then we showed them some brands that were very popular at the time of how they were doing something of that ilk, so they could see where the genesis of using that came from. And then the light bulb went off. Oh, this is a good idea. It ties their whole line together. It's a great design element that focuses on our style numbers, and it'll make our whole collection look good instead of just blank at a trade show. But they needed to see that it came from some things in the world going on at the time. So it was both our inspiration and our selling point, if you will.
And I'll consciously do that and show clients of, you know, this is where, like, I recently did there's a Polish kielbasa smokehouse in my neighborhood that was built in the 1920s, or 1930s. So they're coming up on their 100-year anniversary. They've never had a professional logo because, like a lot of really small independent businesses, you know, whatever sign shop they went to did a quick mock-up of a logo for them and they used that. Or whatever t-shirt shop they went to did their version of that logo and they used that. I was like, this is what I do well. I buy my meats from you because that's what you do well. Let me show you what I can do for you. And went back and design.
I hope you traded with them for kielbasa. But go ahead.
There was a lot of that, yeah. Because of course I didn't want to hit them up with, you know, I ended up way overworking it and spending more hours than I could because I want to support them. And so yes, there was a lot of meat. Will work for meat.
Indigestion for inspiration.
But what I did was go back to Polish propaganda posters, because, you know, a lot of during wartime efforts, you know, the propaganda posters are to build pride in that country. So I went back I was like, okay, this is where I want to focus on and build that look, but bring it into a more modern approach. And I found, you know, certain styles of lettering and then combined like 3 different exemplars is the term for typography of lettering styles, and combined the 3 of those into one that I thought was the best elements of those, but also in a more modern approach, because I wanted it to show them that, you know, you're 100 years old, but you're moving into the future as opposed to you're stuck in the past.
Make kielbasa, not war, right?
At first, their original tagline before I was, "It's hard to beat our meat." So, but they were iffy about the lettering until I showed them the same way that Rick was saying, of like, here are 3 different war posters, you know, from Polish pride, and how they work together and explain the whole concept to them. And once they got the concept, they're like, wow, that's amazing. I never would have thought about that, you know. And they were thrilled with it.
All right. I think that's it. Unless you have a pressing questions.
And
All
I
right.
say we usually do a Q&A here, but the whole thing was kind of a more personal approach. So
Yeah.
thank you
Very
for coming
inspiring.
out.
Yeah. Thanks to Brian. Devilfish Inc. All right. Thanks this is all free because of our sponsors, Los Angeles Apparel and AlphaBroder, Hirsch and Fairweather Johnson, and Stalls and Reese. And from the where am I from? I'm from the Ink Kitchen. I'm thinking about Kilbasas here. From the Ink Kitchen, check out our website, check out Ink Kitchen's YouTube channel, and thank you for coming.